Welcome to my brand new show, the Cindy Noir Show. I am your host, Cindy Noir, and I'm so excited and grateful to be here. Glad to be talking to my podcast audience once again. And y'all, the way I don't feel like doing this for real. Okay, no, but can we talk about this one, y'all?
Oh, can we talk? Can we talk about it? 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 Can we talk? Can we talk about it?
Welcome back from the theme song. I hope you liked it. Yes, that is me on the track if you didn't already know. Shout out to my producer, unlearn, for hooking me up with that song because one thing we did do was that. Anyway. But yeah, like I was saying before the theme song break, I don't feel like doing this. And when I was trying to figure out what I wanted my first episode to be about, I was considering doing a hot topic kind of thing, a really catchy topic to kind of lure in an audience for the drama of it all. But instead, what I think would be a much better topic is to discuss why I don't feel like doing this episode or doing a podcast for that matter. So, without further ado, grab your cups of tea and let's talk about it, shall we? So, transparency moment. My cycle started maybe an hour ago. So, just on the surface level, there, don't feel like doing it for that reason. But if you want to peel back the layers and really dig deep into why I don't feel like doing this, then we have to go back to when I began my podcast career, which was back in 2019, actually. The year was 2019. I was a fresh college graduate, and something in me felt called to create a podcast. At that point, I had gone viral a few times on Twitter. My tweets had landed on the Shade Room, and back then that actually meant something. And a lot of my followers were encouraging me to do a podcast, and I had this voice in my head that was telling me that I should do a podcast, but I was like, nah, I don't know what I would talk about for real. I don't even know if it'd be worth it. That's a lot of work. I don't even know how to set up a podcast. I'm not interested in that. But around the time of all of these thoughts and things happening, the movie Dolomite Is My Name came out on Netflix. This movie is a story about Rudy Ray Moore and his perseverance for his own personal goals and his comedic career. And the movie was so inspiring to me that when I finished watching it, the first thing I did was bought my first ever podcast mic on Amazon. I was so moved by Rudy Ray Moore's determination to fulfill his goal, no matter how it looked to anybody else. Rudy Ray Moore did not put out the most state-of-the-art movie. He was not the best comedian of all time, and yet and still, he believed in himself more than anyone else, and he was relentless in achieving the goals that he wanted for himself. And that was so admirable to me that it encouraged me to tell myself, like, sis, if you think you have what it takes to do a podcast, YouTube how to make one and let's go. And on November 26, 2019, I uploaded my first ever podcast episode. And I want to say that I titled it Jumping Scared. And in that first episode, I talked about how scared I was to try this new venture, but how when you are going for what you want in life, sometimes you gotta jump scared. The sound quality was terrible. I recorded those first few episodes in this really small closet in my mom's old apartment. I was cramped with no space in that closet, but the clothes, my table, and my chair I was stuffed in. It was a lot going on, but I persevered through it anyway and created my first episode. And I was so proud. I was so excited. And from that moment, I was off. I began recording my audio podcast in 2019 and began building an audience, and it was going very well. I had people who were tuning in weekly. I was really enjoying the act of recording my thoughts in long form content beyond just some tweets. And so far, so good. It was a great thing. But after a while of the audio podcasting, my audience began saying they wanted to see me in video form. They wanted to see my facial expressions and how I looked saying certain things. And I was like, ooh, okay, y'all, I'm just for real getting used to the audio podcast. Y'all want me to start editing videos too? So I listened reluctantly, but I listened. And in March of 2020 is when I added the YouTube component of my podcast and began doing video form podcasting and not just audio. And that is the point in which things kind of fell apart for your girl. Not only did editing of my content become 10 times more tedious, but also the extra work behind creating my podcast, now that I had a visual component, made things a little bit more challenging for me. Making sure I was in the mood to both look and talk correctly at the same time. A lot more mental pressure was added for me when I began creating video with my podcast. Because when it was an audio, it didn't matter how I looked. It didn't matter how in the mood I was to socialize. I just had to sit in front of a mic and talk. Now y'all want to see me, so now I have to be alert. My energy has to be on par, baby. Yeah. And so what I found was, after a few months of the video component being added to the podcast, I grew kind of tired. I grew tired of the editing process. I grew tired of how tedious it all was to put in so much effort to crank out one video. And I fell off for the first time in 2020. I want to say it was like late 2020 is when I fell off. After the first time I stopped my podcast in 2020, it created a dynamic where I would start my podcast again, do a few video podcast episodes consistently, crank them out at least once a week, get my audience reacclimated and re-excited from my content. They're tuning in. They're excited to hear from me again, excited to see me again. And like 5 or 6 weeks, if that, into making my content, I fall off again because I just don't feel like it. And the reality is I felt like I wasn't getting the same level of output as I was putting into these creative projects. There's a lot that goes into creating content and editing content. And I felt like I was putting in all this effort to generate content and then only getting a few hundred views. I wasn't getting monetized. I wasn't getting any sponsors or anything like that. And so I would get frustrated and say, well, then what's the point of me doing it? And then I just stopped doing it. And it created a very inconsistent dynamic to where as soon as I would start to regain momentum in my podcast from posting again, I would see the lack of views. I would see the lack of traction that I'm looking for and just say, forget it. I don't care anymore. I don't feel like it. This is too much for the little bit of output I'm getting. This ain't worth it. And so as a result, despite my podcast being around for 5 years, I never gained momentum enough for my podcast to really take off the way that I know that it could have. And so here I am 5 years later, after a whole bunch of I don't feel like it's, with nothing more to show for it than a complete start over reboot of my show, starting from scratch. And I can't lie, it's a very frustrating feeling to know that despite me starting my podcast 5 years ago, I don't really have much to show for these 5 years of time in between starting and where I am now. And it's frustrating to know that I'm the reason why that's the case. Because it isn't like I've posted on a consistent basis for the last 5 years and I'm still stagnant. I'm still where I was day one. That isn't the case. It isn't like I've been doing my part through and through for 5 years straight and the universe, outside forces just aren't agreeing with me. No, your girl just ain't doing the work. And so for the last 5 years, my podcast career has consisted of nothing more than inconsistency. A whole bunch of me starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping. Generating no momentum, generating no substantial growth over time, just starting and stopping. And so this year, I restarted my podcast earlier this year, created some episodes, regained momentum, started to gain more traction, and stopped again. And when I stopped this go round, I really got fed up with me. I really got fed up with my shenanigans because it was like, golly, girl, like, how many times are you not only going to get your audience's hopes up, but more importantly, how many times are you going to get your own hopes up? And starting this podcast to not follow through. Because while, yes, your inconsistency is negatively impacting your audience, it is ultimately negatively impacting you, girl. 5 years of posting on my podcast consistently would have gotten me so much farther than where I am right now. Had I just stuck to it, had I pushed past those times I didn't feel like it, I'd be so much further than where I am now. And I really got on my nerves this last time of stopping my podcast. It's like, girl, you have a voice. People love to hear what you have to say. You love talking. Why can't we commit to this venture of creating content? Because it isn't like I don't like doing it. I love sitting in front of a camera and talking. I'm a certified yapper. Love the experience. So why is it that I keep falling off under the guise of not feeling like it? And so over this summer, while I haven't been doing my podcast, I've really sat with the excuse of I don't feel like it, because I've been letting that excuse run things for the last 5 years, but I really haven't sat down to assess, okay, what don't I feel like? What is that about? And I did this summer, and what I realized was that it isn't that I don't feel like it. It's fear. Your girl is scared, child. Your girl is a little nervous. And I'm someone, I don't necessarily fear failure. I fear success. I fear things going well. In fact, I fear things going beyond what I can comprehend. That's what really starts to scare me. And I think that's why I cut off momentum. That is why I self-sabotage and claim that I don't feel like it anymore. It isn't so much that I don't feel like it. It's, if I keep up with this, it will grow. If I keep up with this, it will expand, and it could expand to a thing that I have not yet fathomed. And that scares me. So instead of me pushing past those temporary moments where I may not feel like it in the moment, I let those feelings control my actions to keep me from seeing just how big this thing can get me. Because the reality is, I'm aware. Like I said, I love talking. People love to hear me talk. And the more that I create organized, long form content of me talking, the more people will tune in and the more they want to hear me talk. That scares me. That knowing that can grow into things bigger than what I've set out for myself terrifies me. And it's a lot easier for me to just say I don't feel like it than for me to have to sit in the reality that I'm scared, child. That I'm scared of my potential fulfilled. But I'm getting to a point where I'm tired of letting fear run my show like this, because it is very frustrating to have peers who I support in their endeavors who are doing the thing, who are being intentional, who are being consistent, who are showing up and showing out consistently, reaping the benefits of their hard work, and I'm stagnant because of my holding myself back. I have held myself back so much in the realm of content creation for my life in the last 5 years. It's not funny. It's not funny. I have let short form content, TikTok videos, reels, be what I think is my gateway. And I have felt like, I mean, if I'm that talented, if I'm meant to take off, then let it be a TikTok then. Let it be a reel. Let it be this easy short form content that isn't taking much out of me to create. Let that be my meal ticket then. But what I've seen is that so many people who have made it in their careers, Issa Rae, what's his name? Bald head uncle. Damn. He be joking about, he's a comedian and be joking about Jesus and stuff. Kev on Stage. There we go. Yeah. When I think about Issa Rae, Kev on Stage and such, they didn't rely on just TikTok or YouTube or whatever. They had consistent content they were putting out over and over. Despite it all, they were putting out content consistently for years before things took off for them. So why do I think that just because for someone else all it might took for them was a TikTok, that's all it's gonna take for me? that may not be the case. Over this summer, I realized that I have been doing myself a disservice as far as relying too heavily on my talent to do the work for me. And I'm realizing that that just isn't enough. I am very talented and I do have a very natural gift in talking and putting words together to form sentences. Natural talent, very gifted, great, love that for me. However, I can't just rely on my natural talent to do the work for me to get me to where I want to be. I've been saying for years that I want to be a world-renowned public speaker. I want to travel the world speaking. Yet, for the most part, I sit at home not putting in any real intentional work to create online content of me speaking in the ways in which I want to speak. I have not created a portfolio of podcast episodes to demonstrate what I want to talk about. I don't have any kind of substantial evidence that proves that I want to be a public speaker for real. What am I doing? You know? And at 28, almost 29, it's finally clicking for me that it's not enough to be talented. Work ethic is what's going to get you where you want to be. There are plenty of people out here who are extremely talented, yet nowhere near where they want to be because they're not putting in the work to back that talent up. And on the flip side, there are plenty of people out here who aren't as talented, but who are light years ahead of the game because they're putting in the work that those who are talented are not. Up until my podcast, I have been fortunate to have this chip on my shoulder where I don't have to work hard to reap benefits of my talent. So on Twitter, I'll just put out a tweet of my thoughts and it goes viral. Didn't take much thought out of me, didn't take much effort, much work. I just tweeted a thought and it went viral, boom, like that. Real easy, real quick. TikTok. I went viral on TikTok very quickly. I grew a platform very easily. I didn't have to have a strategy to it. I just made videos and they went viral. There was no real work ethic behind my TikTok aside from me making videos every day that were very easy. I was making videos in my bonnet and a hoodie blanket, very minimal effort on my part, and they were gaining traction. I'm gaining followers. I'm going viral. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So between those two occurrences on social media, I developed a subconscious thinking that when it comes to me and success on the internet, I don't have to put in much work to do that. It comes to me extremely easily. Whatever I do naturally will just take off. And if it does, then it isn't for me to do. So podcasting has been that thing for me where my natural talent isn't enough. My natural talent is enough for Twitter. It's enough for TikTok and Instagram. But when it comes to building a podcast community, my natural talent will not be enough. Period, point blank. I'm going to have a strategy. I'm going to have organization. I'm going to have intentionality that I don't have with Twitter or TikTok or Instagram. And for the longest, I have, instead of embracing that fact and moving accordingly, I have rejected that fact and just said, fine, I won't do it. I don't feel like it. No, it's okay. That's too much work. Over the summer, during this last podcast hiatus, I had to have a real serious come to Jesus moment with myself. I had to really reel me in and say, okay, girl, what is going on? Because not only is the start and stop foolishness hurting your audience, people who actually care about you and your content, but it's hurting yourself. Because all this starting and stopping is doing is reinforcing to yourself that you're not trustworthy, that your words aren't trustworthy, and that your actions aren't trustworthy. And that's creating more damage for yourself than anything else. So girl, what's going on? And once I really sat down with me and got real with me, I realized that I was hiding behind the excuse of, I don't feel like it. I was letting that run the show in an effort to avoid having to look at my truth, which was that one, I fear the success of me being intentional and being consistent over a long period of time. And two, I'm not used to having to pair my natural born talent along with intentional and consistent work ethic. I'm at the point where I am sick and tired of watching me stand in the way of seeing how far things can go. So this is my last attempt at doing a podcast show, meaning If I fall off again, that's it. I'm not doing it again, because not only am I tired of letting my audience down due to my being inconsistent, I'm tired of letting myself down. And I'm tired of leaning on this idea of I'll just start it again later. This go round, there is no later. This is it. Either we're going to shit or get off the pot. There's no middle anymore. Because not only do you all, as my audience, deserve to experience longevity with my content, but I deserve to know what it looks like for me to really invest in myself in ways that I'm not comfortable with. I have no issue with investing my time, energy, and effort into my TikTok, my Instagram, or my Twitter. I've been doing it because I get the instant gratification, so I have no issue with that. What I have issue with is delayed gratification. Putting in my effort and attention into things that may not give me the instant gratification I'm looking for instantly. And that's what I got to work on. And that's what I'm hoping this venture with my podcast show will help me to do this go round. This kind of ties into the reason why I'm calling my show the Cindy Noir Show. And it's because it's not only just about me giving my input on life topics. This is also a show about me proving to myself just how serious I am about me. My podcast show this go round is a testament to how much I believe in myself and how far I'm willing to go in pursuit of making my dreams a reality. You all will be watching me in real time fight for what I believe in and fight for the work ethic that I deserve to witness myself having. This version of my podcast show is a commitment not just to you all, but to myself, of putting in the necessary work to yield the outcomes I'm looking for. I believe I have what it takes for my podcast to go very far. And I'm finally at a point where I want to allow myself to see how far it can go. You know, I think for a lot of us, when it comes to achieving our goals in life, we tend to limit ourselves on those goals out of fear that we don't have what it takes to really take it there. And I want for this show to serve as an example to myself and to you all that work ethic and a little bit of talent can take you places that you have to first allow yourself to go. I haven't allowed me to go far in my podcast for the last 5 years. And it's a very painful thing to look back at all the time that you've spent intentionally holding yourself back and look at it now and see that you don't have anything to show for it outside of those memories of every time you had the chance to work on it and you didn't. Every time you had the chance to gain progress and you intentionally procrastinated or you intentionally ignored that thought in your voice that said, girl, you should probably be, editing a video. You should probably be brainstorming for your next podcast episode. You should probably be, those voices be happening and I stay ignoring them. And so 5 years later from starting my podcast, to know that all I have to show for it is the graveyard of memories of all those chances I gave myself to do better. Let's just say that 5 years from now, I don't want to feel the same way. So we're going to raise our glasses and we're going to cheers to new beginnings. We're going to cheers to no longer allowing for ourselves to be the reason why we're not where we want to be. And we are going to raise our glass and cheers to no longer letting not feeling like it be the reason why we don't do it. Without further ado, cheers, people. Because not feeling like it just isn't a good enough excuse for yourself. And you deserve more than that. I think it's crazy because if I were to be dating somebody and I said, or I asked for a date night and they said no because they didn't feel like it, it'd be an automatic, you gotta go. So the fact that I wouldn't tolerate it for somebody else, but yet I've been tolerating it from me, not very cutesy, not very mindful, not very demure. I'm very excited for my show. I'm very excited for the work ethic that I'm going to put into this show. I have some amazing topics we're going to discuss on this show. I have amazing guests who will be featured on my show. And there's a lot of Patreon exclusive content coming you all's way that I'm excited for y'all to take a look at as well. But for now, this will conclude the first episode of my show. Until next time, you all do me a favor and be blessed and bless up. Bye.